that people hate more than anything else in politicians. And some politicians have immense political talent, you know, like a Bill Clinton or an Obama, or maybe even a Trump can get away with that. She's not at that level of political talent. Maybe she never will be. It just stunk of, you know, kind of weasel words, and it satisfied nobody.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you guys why I care so much about this. And because Glenn and I probably agree on a bunch of things about what was considered woke back then and was right or wrong, but there's probably things we disagree on, right? And there's a host of issues that go under the umbrella of woke, and some are, in my opinion, perfectly good things to be concerned about and to take action on, and some were absurd, right? And there's a giant range. But to me, what matters more, again, as Glenn and I have been talking about here, is can you trust this person, if they win, to actually do the things that they're saying they're going to do, right? And what are they saying that they're going to do? So I want to go to B2 here, because in this video, Jonathan Karl asked her about her change, because she acknowledges, yes, I have changed. So, okay, and to Glenn's point earlier, for example, I've discussed how I changed from when I was a Republican when I was a kid to why I'm a Democrat now. And I've gone over that many times and explained issue by issue the awakening that I had. Oh, it turns out the Republicans are the ones that always start the wars. Oh my God, it turns out they never balance budgets. And I can go on. And it's an easy thing for me to explain because I lived it. There was a real reason why I came to those conclusions, right? So when she's asked why she changed, I really want you to focus on her answer. Concentrate on the words you're saying. You're going to be forced to concentrate, otherwise you won't understand the words that. But focus on what she's saying here, because let's see if we can decipher it together. Watch.
You've changed as well, right? How have you changed since you came in as this insurgent rebel at odds with the Democratic leadership? How have you changed?
You know, I think life has a way of really weathering you and adding to your context and your experience. It humbles you, but it also emboldens you in a lot of ways. And I think it has been the greatest privilege of my life to be able to represent the working people of my congressional district. And I think some of the ways that it's changed me has been to be able to come in with so many aspirations for our country, and then to have the remarkable opportunity to be in the arena and try to make the country a better place, challenges and all. And I love that it's hard. I love that I have to, and I get to engage with people from all across the country, elected officials from all across the country, to try to actually fulfill our dreams to guarantee health care to every American.
What in the world was that? Okay, so first she's humbled and emboldened. Okay, it's a great privilege to represent the working people. Okay, but how did you change? Because she came in with so many aspirations and excited about the opportunity to be in the arena. So far, so good. How did you change? She then says that she loves that it's hard to get things done. I don't love that. I want Medicare for all to pass immediately and instantly. I want it to be super easy. Paid family leave, higher minimum wage, end the endless wars, money in politics. I hate that it's so hard to get an amendment. Is this like a personal quest for her? And like, are we in the middle of her Pilates or something? Exercise, like political Pilates exercise? What is this? What do you mean you like that it's hard? And wait, how did all of this change you? Because it gave you the opportunity to engage with people, elected officials from across the country, but we didn't get anything done. So you engaged with them and got nothing done. But anyway, how did that change you? Glenn, can you make heads or tails of this answer? What is this?
Everyone knows what he's asking, right? Like, I interviewed AOC in the primary when almost nobody knew her. You guys were covering her. A few other people were. Ryan Grimm said to me, hey, there's this primary challenger who I think that even you'd like, because I had really become very jaded about the Democratic Party. I interviewed her, and based on the things she told me she believes and wants to do, I actually got excited about her candidacy. I recommended people support her, even donate money to her, something I've almost never done. And I can tell you all the ways that the AOC now, that the Democratic Party from the most centrist to the right wing of the party, adores and talks about how she's so mature and how she's become such a party player and a team player. That's what he's asking her. Like, you've clearly changed from this outsider who used to, camp outside Nancy Pelosi's office and protest her to the ultimate party insider. Like, can you explain that trajectory? Like, what motivated that change? And she completely didn't answer it, talking instead about her journey of personal enlightenment. And this is the kind of thing I'm saying, Cenk, like, I think the worst political aspect of Kamala Harris is that you would hear her be asked a question and she would speak words in a, like, moderately coherent way that aligned with the rules of English. But at the end, it would be so obvious that she just did everything but answer the question. And I do think AOC is a lot more politically talented than Kamala, that's for sure. But again, nobody who listens to that is going to think, oh, I got an answer to the question that I want answered and that I know he was answering. And I don't know who's telling her that this is a winning path for her, but what she's trying to do is exactly what we see politicians doing and failing at these days all the time, which is trying to offend nobody by speaking words that don't mean anything to anybody and being so obviously inauthentic and afraid of their own shadow to speak. And that was a perfect example of what I think is her biggest political failing. And if she continues to do that, whatever passion or excitement she continues to generate in some people who still haven't seen this in her, that's going to dissipate. This is what people hate more than anything in politics.
Yeah, if anything, I should be super proud. I named Justice Democrats. I founded Justice Democrats. Our beautiful, amazing, hopeful audience raised $2.5 million for Justice Democrats. And I should be bragging about it to no end. But guys, we've been burned too many times by people pretending to be on our side and then not doing anything. I'm still burned from all the change and hope posters Obama had. If he said, oh, I meant pocket change, at least there would have been some degree of honesty to it. After Obamacare, he didn't try to do change anything for like 6, 7 long, brutal years. So when I see a fake laugh like that, he goes, oh, you're not allowed to comment on that. Yeah, I am. If somebody asks me, hey, Jay, why did you change? I don't go, what is that? It's so weird, right? And then Kamala Harris had that, and Kamala Harris didn't stand for anything. And do we not live through Fetterman? What's going on here? So what is my core concern? That the point of people who were Justice Democratic candidates, progressives, outsiders, populists, whatever you want to call them, was that they were supposed to go in and challenge the system. That once they were inside the gates, they were supposed to do battle within those gates, and they were supposed to try really hard to open the doors of the castle so that others could come into the gates. And instead, it appears, by all accounts here and everything she's saying, and Glenn is right, also by the reaction of mainstream press, who used to hate her when she was an outsider, and now absolutely adore her. That was an incredibly soft interview. No other progressive ever gets that. So based on all of that, including most importantly her own words, she has now changed to accepting the system as it is and making slight tweaks within the system, maybe, hopefully.
freaked out because they've been traumatized so many times by these politicians who tell them things, they get their hopes up, and then they're immediately crushed. And if AOC isn't careful, and obviously what she's trying to do is to placate the people who think she's too far to the left, she's going to lose her biggest political asset, which is the political energy that she continues to create. Not as much as she used to, but still does. And I think, I've always thought for many years now that what she's doing is morphing into Nancy Pelosi. And I think that morphing is happening much more rapidly than even I thought a couple of years ago.
Life comes at you fast. It's loud, unplanned, and messy. Like when rush hour starts at home, or when the family grows in size and responsibilities. When you finally have a place that's all your own, a full life beats a perfect one. And we wouldn't have it any other way. Family Dollar, we're here for it.
Argo Gas hits all the marks. It cleans engines, boosts performance, and enhances fuel economy.
Literally, I believe that everything that he has done, it contains not just an underlying current of how does it benefit him personally. It is the first thought of everything that he.
Yeah, I think that's true. I watched a lot of crappy stuff happen in D.C. over the 35 years I lived there, and I didn't even recognize it as crappy at the time. And we're all kind of implicated in this. We've had a lot of bad leaders, actually, or mediocre leaders. I don't know. We've had a flamboyantly corrupt leader like this, and we haven't ever. That's true.
Tucker Carlson and Hunter Biden got together. Instantly, that's already amazing. And then they agreed on a whole bunch of stuff. That's also amazing. And if I told you 2 years ago, Glenn Greenwald, that Tucker Carlson was going to agree with Hunter Biden that Trump is flamboyantly corrupt, would you have believed me?
I have been friends with Tucker now for a good while, have always viewed him a lot more positively than most people because of my getting to know him. But even in the context of acknowledging that, no, I don't think this is the combination that I would have expected. But I think what Hunter Biden has done in the last 3 months, because for so long we all talked about Hunter Biden. And as he said in the interview, which I really recommend highly that people go and watch, we never really talked about Hunter Biden. It was always the Hunter Biden laptop and these kind of images that took a small part of his life, basically 2 years of very heavy active addiction, and turned it into a character of who this person was. And he couldn't speak before for political reasons and legal reasons. And now he's coming forward and speaking. And what's so interesting about him, and he talked about this as well, is that he is basically a person who has been completely stripped down in public. Like no privacy, no secrets, everything, has been laid to bear. You know more about Hunter Biden, have seen more about Hunter Biden than you do almost any other person in your life. And from that has come this kind of freedom where he's like almost internally at peace because there's nothing else left that can be done to him. And I think the power of this kind of personal experience, along with the experience of having been a hardcore addict and then gone through recovery, which I think generally affects people in very positive ways, is enabling him to open up these kind of communication channels that most people would not have been able to open up. And the fact that Tucker and he can speak for 2 hours in not always agreeing on everything, but in this very kind of almost meta-political way, I think illustrates the opportunity of the moment that I know you also see, where there is an opportunity to kind of come together in ways that we haven't previously come together that don't depend on the duopoly and their very, extensively shared ideology, but people who are very angry and disenchanted about the political establishment for very similar reasons, who don't necessarily agree on everything, but are willing to deprioritize those in order to kind of do what you said earlier, like reimpose democracy and like how
So let's share your conversation. They had a stunning series of mea culpas. And then at the end, Tucker said something I did not know that is going to be controversial. I'm curious what Glenn thinks of it too. But first, here's more thoughts on Trump's corruption.
Donald Trump is selling $100,000 early access to his True Social tweets, which is just a front running for insider trading. Literally, in the open.
There's almost no arguing with your point. That's true.
Yeah.
I would just say I think it's been that way for a long time.
People who give him $100,000 a pop, and then they get insider information they could trade on and basically screw over the rest of the investors. That includes you guys. It is as brazen an act of corruption as you'll ever see, but we're in different times. Tucker Carlson was a host on Fox News, and he would tell you, and he does tell you all the time these days, that he wouldn't have said that on Fox News. So now honesty is broken out in a spectacular and unexpected way. That also applies to Hunter Biden, who had this mea culpa.
When I took on Burisma, when my dad was vice president as a client at the end of the year, it's like it was a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't fully aware of the of what a swamp it was, and the narrative that would be able to be spun. It was a horrible idea. Now I had my reasons, okay, but they're not good enough. I own that. I own the idea that I do believe that there is this revolving door in Washington, D.C. that needs to be shut, in which people come in and out of administrations. We know them all.
They're trading on access.
And they're not bad people that are trading on access. I did not trade on access. You can look through 22 years of mine. But I know this. I know that I received incredible privileges that no one else in the world, including to the point of my pardon. No, literally, there's no one else in the world that was in my position that their father happened to have the authority and the power to do it. And I realize how privileged I am. But I think that there is I think that there needs to be a reckoning with, if I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, some startling admissions that 2 years ago we wouldn't have had from either side. So I really want to discuss this outbreak of honesty. It's just an amazing development. But first, one last one from Tucker Carlson on his apology for backing Donald Trump. Which led to
America to start this regime change war with Iran. And I was like, I'm going to single-mindedly focus on it. That's all I'm going to do with my life is and I knew a lot of people in the Middle East, and I thought, oh man, I can do this. And I realized on February 28th, first of all, I had zero power, okay? But it was mostly vanity. I was like, I have a mission, I can do this. And it was, I overstated my own influence like dramatically in a very embarrassing way. And my own importance, and like I thought I could do things that like I had no control over any of this stuff, and I was humiliated correctly. I was humiliated for my wife. I was like, you're doing a good thing. And so, yeah, I was mad at Trump, but I was also really mad at myself.
So I'm going to save Tucker's shocking allegation to show you in a second. But Glenn, I have my own theory on this, but let me ask you first. Why this shocking outbreak of honesty from both sides just in the last 2 years?
Well, I think in the case of Hunter Biden, like I said, the process and experience that he had to confront was one where you never get through that unless you're being completely honest. And, why do we need Hunter Biden to be the one who stands up and says, yeah, what I did was wrong? It at least created the perception of corruption, when what the Trump kids are doing, what Jared Kushner is doing, what Trump himself are doing is in a completely different universe of corruption. We're talking about not $50,000 a month from Burisma, which I actually thought was kind of shady and improper, but we're talking about literally billions of dollars that are basically just bribes coming from Middle East countries like the Emiratis and the Saudis into the coffers of the Trump family in exchange for incredible gifts that Trump is giving to those countries in return. And do you think we're ever going to hear Don Jr., Eric Trump, or Jared Kushner, or any of them speak with this kind of honesty and willingness to just say, yeah, I was wrong? I find this incredibly encouraging because it's what we're lacking more than anything. And I think part of it is, as I said, the personal experience that Hunter Biden has that I think makes him an incredibly impressive person. But I also think that, people realize that we're in a position in our country, in our political culture, and what the United States does, it affects the whole world, where things need to change and change very radically and very fundamentally, because if they don't, we're all going to get engulfed by this self-destructive venom that our political culture is producing. And I think that produces a kind of more authentic and honest way of engaging with politics. Like, you don't have this kind of ego and vanity that you're kind of letting guide you and never admitting you're wrong and always wanting to be engaged in political combat. You're actually, especially as you get older, you have kids, you're looking for actual solutions. You're way more open to, okay, I went wrong here, I went wrong there, but let's kind of put that aside and figure out how we can move forward in a way that we can kind of pull our power and influence and resource and do it together so that it actually works. And I do think a lot of these conversations are being motivated by that kind of an authenticity.
Yeah, my theory is that mainstream media, corporate media created an assembly line of talking points and lies, partly to get to what the establishment and the donors wanted, and partly to divide us. And then once people became unshackled from corporate media, they started appealing to their audience, and they found out that their audience wants honesty. And I think that has changed the entire dynamic of our media landscape. And
totally.
And why were Glenn and I, look, you criticize Glenn and I on a million things, you can disagree with our policy positions, and we sometimes disagree with each other, obviously, right? But I think that we both have a reputation for, maybe too much honesty, right? We're gonna tell you what we think, and we've been saying it the entire time. Why? Because we weren't in corporate media, we were in online media, and we were independent, and we weren't shackled by the people who, the billionaires who run these companies. So I think freedom is kind of broken out. But I do want to get to that last clip because Tucker had a revelation I did not know. Let's watch that.
Can I just say one thing, though? That this is what I experienced during that time. The allegation that there was abusive minors driven on the laptop, that came from the Israelis. I'm just telling you that. They came to me with that, so I know that. And one of the things that enraged me about the statement from those sleazy intel guys is that they blame the Russians for it. Now, maybe the Russians had a hand in it, but it was the Israelis who were pushing that fact. I mean, literally to me. I sent one of my producers out to go meet with one of a guy who connected to Netanyahu. They were behind that, and I felt that everybody in DC knew that. But there was so much pressure never to criticize Israel in any way that they were just like, it's the Russians, it's the Russians. They're the ones penetrating our political system. It's like, you lie. Everyone knows what's actually happening. This was my perspective, and it drove me insane. And by the way, I didn't say that on Fox News. I'll admit it. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't. You're right. I just want to say I was part of the problem also, but I knew it.
These are startling admissions. And by the way, Glenn, that pattern is not unusual. We saw once Drop Site News had emails from Ehud Barak and Larry Ellison. It was revealed that every international deal that Jeffrey Epstein did was in favor of Israel, and mainstream media ran with headlines about how it was Russia. So what's going on here? Have they been like literally actively lying to us our whole lives?
Well, remember, one of the thing that bothered me the most about the whole Hunter Biden episode was not the content of the laptop. I always said the stuff about his personal life has no relevance. We shouldn't even know about that, and if we do, we shouldn't care. It was, the sleazier stuff about profiteering off the Biden influence, but I never thought it was such a big deal. What bothered me the most was that the intelligence community came out with that letter explicitly lying and saying that it was Russian disinformation, the Russians were behind this, nobody should use this laptop, and then ultimately I got prohibited at my own media outlet from using it on the grounds that it was its authenticity was in question because it was pushed by the Russians. This was a complete lie from the very beginning, and I can tell you for sure that in so many of these instances, Israel or its loyalists in the United States use sexual blackmail like nobody else. Many of the most powerful surveillance and hacking technology are Israeli or are in the hands of people like Palantir who have complete loyalty to the Israelis. You can depict this as, an attempt to blame this tiny little country for everything that goes wrong, but the reality is that when it comes to these sorts of practices, nobody does them more effectively and more sociopathically than the Israelis. And yes, the way in which Israel has its hands in so many different things in our country has, like I said before, not only been, but continues to be the main taboo in media for all sorts of reasons. And I do think at the end of the day, the kind of extreme hysteria and backlash, yes, it's part of the fact that people don't like left-wing economic populism, don't like socialism or protecting the capitalist class, but more than anything, they see it as a threat to Israel and its sovereignty and hegemony in the United States. And I don't know if you saw, Joe Scarborough almost had an aneurysm online talking about Hassan and the Democratic Party's directional movement toward his worldview. All of this is about Israel, but not just about Israel, but they have a huge army of loyalists in the United States who carry out the agenda of Israel in our foreign policy, even in our economics. These people are incredibly powerful, and nobody wants to confront them because they are limitless in what they will do to you. And that's why, even subconsciously, they may not even realize they're afraid of those forces, but that's why these people stay so firmly in line.
Yeah, and they have no bounds, and they also attack Jewish Americans. It has nothing to do with religion. It just has to do with
they don't care at all.
nationalism. Yeah, and so Glenn, I never got a chance to ask you this, but so there's a picture released of you that some people considered compromising. Again, private lives, I couldn't care less, right? Obviously, you criticize Israel, but you criticize a lot of countries and a lot of governments. So, did you ever find out, who was behind that?
Yeah, we know the immediate people who acquired those videos and then released them, but still don't really fully have the complete picture of the agenda behind it, who actually paid them for it and the like. And I'm a little bit restrained in what I can say because there is a criminal investigation and criminal proceedings ongoing. But yeah, that was an example of exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about. I'm by far not the first person to whom that's happened. I definitely won't be the last. For me, it made no difference because I've always